Welcome to episode 157 of the Daniel Yoris podcast with today's guest, Dr. Mani Kukreja. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Joined here today, thankfully, by Dr. Mani. Dr. Mani, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today.
Likewise, I'm glad to be here.
Can you give us a quick introduction of who you are and what it is that you do?
So my name is Dr. Mani, and I am an integrative wellness and health practitioner. So I have a virtual practice where I help my patients to reset and optimize their health, taking care of, if they have any overweight problems or diabetes, hormonal issues, skin problems, gut problems, immunity-related issues. So all that kind of stuff, and taking care of that with the help of integrative optimization and holistic approach.
So there's a lot there. Obviously, that's a wide range of conditions and things to pay attention to. But I think as most people start to understand health a little bit better now, that we realize that there's way more interaction and overlapping between a lot of these conditions due to aging as a big blanket term, or inflammation, or just the stressors of society and the world. And it seems like, I do all of these things, but really it's a lot of interrelated stuff. Is that fair to say?
That is perfectly fair. And that's why it's just so hard to define aging as such. There's just no simple definition. Basically, in a broad term, we can define aging as a slow decline biologically and physiologically at all the levels, at cellular level, at molecular level, at tissue level, organ level, and then system level. And then, when this happens, it increases your risk for age-related diseases. That is diabetes, obesity, cancer, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease. And then further, basically complicating and reducing your lifespan and health span. But, physically, all these aging stuff, how people know that they're aging, physical manifestation of aging is just like gray hair, frailty, loss of muscle, bone mass loss, and tiredness and forgetfulness, gray hairs, wrinkles. All these are basically physical manifestations. So this is just the overall term that we explain to people, this is aging. But it doesn't come simple as just one term. It comes as a complication of so much inflammation, so much oxidation that increases in the body, so much decreased ability to detoxify all those toxins out of body. And these are the three processes which happens during the process of aging: increased inflammation, increased oxidation, and decreased ability to detoxify the toxins. And when these kind of all mishaps accumulate in the body at the cellular level, that causes aging. But the good news is, there are so many theories of aging. The aging scientists, longevity scientists, they had proposed so many theories. And initially, long back, it was thought that this is all basically genetically embedded in your code, in your cellular codes, so it's inevitable. But the other scientists, through publications and through so much scientific research, they this is all because of your lifestyle issues. They are because of your poor nutrition. They are either because of your poor sleep hygiene or, lack of exercise. Other scientists said that these are totally due to the chemical toxins which are all around us, like all environmental toxins. We are now in these days, we are all loaded with environmental toxins around us. We are exposed to all the BPAs in the plastics. We are exposed to phthalates in the skincare and cosmetics. We are exposed to all those glycophates in the pesticides, and our food is all exposed to that, and mercury fillings, dental procedures, and our water is not clean. Our water is loaded with all those heavy metals, all the EMF and radiation. All those kind of toxins cause huge toll on our DNA. They cause DNA toxicity, and then they cause cellular damage. So combination of all that stuff that we just talked about, the lifestyle and environmental, as well as genetic, the combination of all that causes aging. But the good news that I tell people, it's only 20% genetic. It's all 80% lifestyle. That means we can still correct some of these parameters, and we can take control of the aging. We can at least take control of all these age-related diseases at their speed. And sometimes we can even reverse them if we are taking the right steps. If we are actually, taking the right interventions to control those stuff.
I think it's super helpful for people to understand, and this is certainly not the first time we've talked about this here, but super helpful to understand that your genetics do play a role, but you can't control that. And so spending so much time worrying about that and stressing over that when you have this giant other bucket called your lifestyle that you can directly influence by your actions, and that's going to make a greater impact on your genetics and on the outcomes of this. Now, maybe, more cutting edge science will allow us to actually alter our genetics, and who knows what that brings with it. But I think it's really helpful for people to know that, hey, you have a way more ability to impact this positively than you think you can.
So well said. Yeah, very well said.
Another thing, thank you. Another thing with this, I often see people talk about like preventing aging or anti-aging is kind of some of the buzzword. And I think like, aging is, I don't know that we can stop it. Like time is going to pass. So you are going to age. Now, maybe we can slow down the age-related diseases that come with it or prevent age-related diseases. And so, getting gray hair is not like, that's not a death sentence. It's just gray hair. It's just a cosmetic looking thing. And correct me if I'm wrong here at all, but it's just a cosmetic thing on the outside, maybe wrinkled skin, fine. But like really what we're trying to prevent is fixing our lifestyle so that we don't have age-related diseases. But the aging itself is not necessarily the issue. And you'll have more insight on that, but that's one way that I think, this anti-aging term sometimes can be misleading.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with it's just aging is not a problem. It's just the tons of issues and tons of age-related complications that comes along. And if you have no tools, no wisdom, no experience, no education to control those age-related problems, then it becomes a matter, and then it becomes an issue. So, we say, okay, aging is all about extending the lifespan. But for me, it's all about extending your health span. So if you're able to spend the last 10, 15 years of your life when you're nice, healthy, you're not dependent, you're able to carry on all your work by yourself, that makes the whole thing so much better. So it's just not about lifespan extension. It's all about health span. It's making your life better. It's actually having all those quality of life, those last years of your life, that bucket, the whole bucket of life is basically extending the quality of that, number of years that you have lived on earth. So I think that for me, that is the main essence of, anti-aging. That's why I agree with you totally. You cannot control aging, I know there's been so much buzz on social media here and there and Google and the internet and everything around you. You hear people, okay, I want to live until 140 years. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. That's fine. But, I think it's just the social stuff, it's just not avoidable, but just living with good quality of years. I think that matters to me a lot.
There's also the going too far on these things. Like if you spend every waking moment of your day avoiding every single environmental stressor and in turn stressing about avoiding stressors and doing all of these things, and you're not actually like having fun with your friends or having any experiences, like what is the point of, maybe your body will be physically healthy, but you're not enjoying your life. So you live to 200 and enjoy 0 days of your life. Like what did you really gain by doing that? And I don't know. So like there has to be some healthy balance of this, of course, with anything. People want to be, super, big and strong and shredded and six pack and whatever. But at some point it's like, well, for what? Like for what reason? And if you are, shortcoming or sacrificing too much enjoyment in your life just for some other goal that is going to bring you enjoyment, you're not really accomplishing anything there. So there's definitely a fine line there.
Absolutely. There's got to be definitely balance of, you cannot be having all that cortisol level increased and raised, just thinking what you're going to do in a day to control your speed of aging, right? So there's definitely got to be balance for everything. And that's the essence.
So what are some of the big considerations or maybe diseases, if you will, that come with age that we should be really thinking about here?
So mostly aging is accompanied by the 4 or 5 main chronic metabolic diseases, and they are chronic. Inflammation. Let's start with inflammation. Inflammation is just the basic term that we say, okay, when your body basically fights with all the external stressors. And that's that's very natural. That happens. It's basically body's protective mechanism, right? When it happens acutely, it basically protects you from the external injuries. It's a body's natural defense mechanism. But when this inflammation becomes chronic or long term, that is actually the main reason that causes the risk for all the metabolic diseases, all chronic metabolic diseases. And these are diabetes, obesity, cancer, and cardiovascular disease. So when there's an inflammation of long term in nature, that basically is the main trigger for all these chronic metabolic diseases.
Can you elaborate on how obesity is a disease of inflammation?
Obesity is a disease because obesity, if you think about the fat cells in our body, so there are 2 kinds, there's a visceral fat, that's a fat around our viscerals, around our organs, around liver, blood vessels, around heart, and around spleen and kidney. So that is all called visceral fat. And then there's another fat that's a basically brown fat, and which is around our subcutaneous tissue, which is what we see in our, sides and here. So when this fat, which is white fat, which is called visceral fat, is really risky. It's a main cause for actually all these chronic diabetes and cardiovascular disease. When this fat accumulates in the blood vessels, it causes heart disease, cardiovascular disease, stroke. When it accumulates around the vessels of the kidney, it causes nephropathy. And when this fat accumulates around pancreas, it decreases the efficiencies of pancreas to actually secrete insulin in order to neutralize the blood sugar, right? And when blood sugar cannot be neutralized by insulin is a hormone that actually goes and, bind with the receptors and neutralize all the blood sugar level. It sucks the blood sugar and basically bring the sugar or glucose molecule in to be stored in liver, to be stored in muscles and liver as glycogen molecule. So when there is not enough glucose, your body's cells need glucose for functioning because glucose is a fuel. But when there is so much sugar present in your blood all the time, it causes advanced glycation. And that advanced glycation of all the protein molecules, the nucleic acid molecules, the fatty molecules, when it causes the glycation of all that, that is pro-inflammatory. That means your body produces all those bad inflammatory cells around that area, and then that basically causes that accumulation of fat around the visceral. That's how obesity is related to the inflammation. So there's a lot of inflammation going on around these fat cells. So that's and you see how they are all interconnected. They're all interrelated to each other. You're eating more. You're suffering from pre-diabetes. One day you will suffer from diabetes. At the same time, all that glucose is not being neutralized. That high insulin level is being produced from pancreas. High insulin level is the hormone. High insulin level actually initiates the production of more fat cells, and all that fat cell sits around the tire, around your navel area, around your belly fat, and that's very high risk factor for cardiovascular disease. So you see how inflammation started, and then we had pre-diabetes, and then we have obesity, and that's a risk factor for the cardiovascular disease. Plus also, increased blood sugar is a risk factor for cancer. All these cancer cells are bizarre cells. They are crazy cells. They are the overgrowth. They are just, they're crazy cells which are multiplying with no function, with no sense. They are just multiplying. But if they have constant presence of sugar or glucose as fuel, they will keep multiplying. There'll be constant growth of the cancer. So if you want to just shut down the growth of cancer, you need to be basically right from the beginning in your lifestyle, just consume, controlled sugar and carbohydrates. So that's how all the stuff is so much interrelated with each other, and everything starts with inflammation.
Right. So it's more of a cycle with multiple entry points, and then it continues to feed itself back. Like you may become obese you're not obese because you're inflamed, but you may become more inflamed as you become more obese, which causes you to become more obese, which makes you become more inflamed, which leads to this whole again, just this negative cycle that just continues to feed itself. No pun intended there.
Exactly. It's a vicious cycle that goes on and on and on. And that's why you might have seen, the kind of patients sometimes we see who are chronic sufferer of all these problems. You see they are fat as well as they're diabetic, plus also they have the cardiovascular problem. Because if you're diabetic, if you have obesity, there is no way that your cholesterol level is going to be normal. Your lipid panel is going to be totally disturbed. You're going to have bad cholesterol. You have LDL, and when you have high LDL, you will have the accumulation of plaques and atherosclerosis in your blood vessels, and then that's the road to cardiovascular disease. So totally.
Yeah. I think it's very helpful for people. It can sound overwhelming, where it's like, oh, there's so many things to consider. But you don't have to actually pay attention to each of these things, because if you just kind of if you stop the cycle, then the whole cycle stops, right?
Right.
If you prevent yourself from becoming obese, control your inflammation, if you stop any one of these things, then you're going to be doing yourself a huge favor for many, many years. And it's also reversible. Is that fair to say, all of these things?
Yes, it is. 80% is totally correctable. If you just manage your lifestyle and if you manage all that is in your own control, it is 80% correctable. It can be even reversible, totally. We tell people, at least look about, there are easy things around you, especially starting from exercise, right? It's such a easy, but people who don't do it, they just don't get into it. And that's why it's just hard to explain people. But I think the right education can really motivate them to basically start from the basic level. Start doing something for yourself. Just move, moving is detrimental. You cannot be just sitting on the couch. It's going to be nasty. Your health is going to be just declining every day. So if you don't do anything at athletic level, or you don't have any workout protocol, at least just walk. And then, when these people start to walk and then they like it and then they start to see the difference in their health improvement, I tell, okay, now start to jog and then start to run. If you don't like running, just start to do some kind of, resistance training, even for 30 minutes, even for 20 to 30 minutes initially to begin with is perfectly fine. But make your goal to 150 minutes to 300 minutes if you're involved in some moderate level exercises. And if you're doing the high intensity exercise, 75 minutes are good enough for the whole week. 75 minutes to 150 minutes per week. So it basically depends on your likings and your goal, whether you want to basically have more endurance or you want to gain strength in your muscles. If you want to gain strength, then you will be more involved with the resistance training and weight training. But if your goal is to basically get more endurance and good for your heart health, then you will be involved in aerobic exercise and HIIT trainings.
Yeah, and ideally people are engaging in both and all of the things, right? But I think the most important thing is that if you're someone who feels like, oh no, I'm in this cycle, maybe I'm pre-diabetic, maybe I'm currently obese, maybe whatever, you can get out of it, and you don't have to overhaul your entire life overnight at the snap of a fingers. You can just start walking, start wherever you are, and it doesn't have to even be exercise. I think exercise, obviously, I'm biased towards that, and I think many people are. I think it's a very tangible thing that people understand. There's an immediate benefit, immediately tangible benefit of exercise. You go for a walk, you feel better. Oh, wow. That was awesome. Versus, you eat a salad, maybe you don't feel better right away. It's not as tangible sometimes, the positive effect of it. Or especially taking supplements. Sure, that can be the entrance point, but you take a couple magnesium capsules, you're not going to feel anything the first time you take that. It's not going to all of a sudden be like, oh, this was the missing key. This was the only thing that I needed to be doing. But so you start where you are, you start with what you like, and then you continue to expand upon that. And then we can get into more of the weeds of hey, this type of training is better than this type of training for XYZ reasons and for these specific goals. But the reality is just start moving if you're not exercising. And I'd be shocked if anyone who's listening to this episode is who listens to this podcast, doesn't exercise. If you're not,
Yeah.
I don't know what I've been doing wrong. 150 episodes in, and we're not. But hey, so yeah, so I assume you are just continuing to do that though.
Totally. I mean, exercise. I tell people that this is the basic. It's the elixir of youth. There's nothing better than exercise. That's the first step that I will actually have my clients get involved in. Even before supplementation, before anything. I mean, there's no supplementation. There's no medication that can be as good for anti-aging as exercise is. Just start with some, just think about it, four simple steps, so there has to be some pushing, some pulling, some some aerobic workout, and then definitely leg work. So I tell my people, okay, start with, if you don't have time, just start with a little bit of bench press, which is going to involve some pushing and pulling, air squats, and then jumping jacks for your aerobics. If you're doing even those three for 10 to 20 minutes, you're good enough. I have some clients, Danielle, who are who tells me they are the owner and CEOs of the company, like, we don't have time, money, how are we going to do it? But, there's been a recent research that there's the kind of protocol for exercise. It's called VILPA. I don't know if you've heard of it. VILPA. V is vigorous, I intensity, L means lifestyle, PA is physical activity. So this is vigorous intensity, lifestyle physical activity, which is basically that even if you're working in your office, just for 1 to 3 minutes, very high intensity exercise, do that so that you can bring your maximum heart rate. You can bring your heart rate to 80% of your MHR, maximum heart rate. If you're able to do that 3 to 5 times in a day, just 1 to 3 minutes of exercise 3 to 5 times in a day. So it is so beneficial that with this recent study that's been published, it says that, it kind of just it decreases your all-cause mortality to 30 to 40%. That's a huge number. I mean, when you see that you have again and again, more and more research, more and more science that shows that actually sheds light on so much benefits of exercise, why would you not do it? I mean, it's just utmost important.
It seems, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I'm with you. I can't understand why anyone wouldn't be exercising at this point with all the knowledge we have in the world. But I think, another helpful tip to just to highlight there is that it doesn't have to always be a 1 hour or hour and a half workout with all kinds of crazy exercises and stuff. Like one of my a client who I have right now who's doing extremely well. He's very busy, owns a company and all these things. He works out for 25 to 30 minutes a day. That's like the max time. When he came to me, he's like, oh, that's the only time I have. I can commit to doing that every day, but I can only do that. Like, don't give me an hour and a half workout. It's not going to happen. I said, great, that's fine. And I said, the only expectation is, hey, you're not going to become Mr. Olympia by doing this. Like, we got to set expectations. But as far as your health and a little bit of weight loss and these things and feeling better, yeah, absolutely, that's phenomenal. And intensity is just the bigger thing. Exactly, consistency.
Yeah, that's important. And then because you see, I mean, especially I have a lot of women clients more than 40 years of age, especially after the age of 40, you lose your muscle 5 to 8%. And when this 5 to 8% reduction in the muscle loss, and muscle is such an important organ of your body, it's like a sink for glucose disposal, right? Because all your glucose is basically disposed off in the muscle so that your blood sugar level is basically maintained and optimized, So in order to have good amount of muscle, and at least optimized amount of muscle as per your age, exercise is so important. So totally for that. Yeah.
Do you think that age-related muscle loss is a naturally occurring thing? Like, if someone was still exercising and still strength training, they started when they were 20 and, they've been training consistently and now they're 60, would they still be experiencing that loss of muscle? Or is it mostly because a very, very large percentage of people 40 plus just stop exercising and then therefore they start losing muscle?
Actually, there are so many factors, Daniel. The very first thing, the hormones, they play an important role. I mean, these are something very intrinsic that comes with aging and cannot control. Hormones like testosterone, estrogen for women, women are actually, all these estrogen is so cardioprotective. The testosterone, when they decline, your muscle strength reduces, and then your strength to do the exercise and all that, you're on a slow decline. But by exercise, But at the same time, think about this: by exercise, you are also increasing the level of your testosterone, right? So it's a natural booster of testosterone. Plus also muscles, just like you said, anything that doesn't get use, you lose it. You lose anything that you don't use it, right? So muscles, if they are into constant action, it's just like an elastic. It's just like an elastic spindle. It's a spindle cells, right? So if you keep stretching it, and then when you stretch it, when all those muscles, when you move your body, you stretch the muscles, you do all those resistance training, you are basically causing those microscopic tear in the muscle cells. And that's actually a kind of an intentional stress on the muscle cells. That's called hormesis. And because of that, it initiates your anti-aging hormones. So by exercising, even if you are on a road to decline, thinking about your age is causing the decline in the hormones, but at the same time, by exercising, you are increasing and boosting your hormones, right? At the same time, you are causing the stress on the muscles by exercising. But, when there's a microscopic tear, your body actually senses that stress as basically as a kind of hormesis, and then your body sends all those anti-aging genes to repair that stress, to repair those muscle cells. And then there's a rejuvenation of new muscle cells. So you see, when you have those new muscle cells, your muscle strength is going to be increased. And then also I tell my patients that within 90 minutes after you finish your exercise, try to come back home, consume some protein, which is high in BCAA, branch chain amino acids, particularly leucine, because leucine is a muscle booster. Leucine is the amino acid which actually causes the repair of that muscle. So when you have caused enough damage on the muscle by doing those resistance exercise, then you boost feed your muscle cells with the help of leucine, that amino acid that you particularly need. Then you have the production of those new muscle cells, which are much energetic, which are rejuvenated. So, that's the way. You're basically fighting against aging, right? Yeah. Aging is causing all those declines, but you know those strategies that you got to do in order to fight against aging. So, definitely. To your question, you asked that, can you even gain muscles after the age of 50? Definitely, yes.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's just, again, one of these things that's been overblown. Oh, you lose muscle. Well, you lose muscle if you don't do anything about it. Sure, if you just sit there, you're going to lose muscle. But you can definitely do something about it, and therefore you should. Getting into a little bit more detailed things, and just because you mentioned leucine there, what are some foods or some things that people should be eating that are higher in leucine as their post-workout meals, or to optimize their muscle building?
Particularly for leucine, my main source is the protein powder, because that's rich, and especially the whey protein, which is rich in BCAA. I've also started to take for last 6 months, these aminos, which are pure BCAA, that provides me 5 grams of leucine, isoleucine, valine, all those 3 amino acids, which are particularly very, very important for muscle building. Food-wise, definitely I like to consume animal protein, because there is no plant protein that can give you enough BCAA, definitely. I like to consume the animal protein. I like to consume my chicken and protein content of my day. Overall, I know I tell my people to try to the goal should be 1 gram of protein per pound of your body weight. But even if you are able to meet the goal of consuming 100 grams per day, that's okay. That's okay, because it's life. Some people just don't have enough desire to eat. And, if you're not eating enough in a day, all 3 or 4 times in a day, you cannot just get so much protein in a day. So make a goal. If you can just consume 1 gram per ideal body weight in pounds, it's perfect. But if not, at least try to consume 100 grams per day.
Yeah, I like that. It's always like, that's the standard. That's what you should be aiming for. But if you're a little bit below that, it's going to be okay, right?
It's going to be okay.
Same on the leucine thing. It's like you don't really need. I don't think people need to concern themselves with that all that much. Like if you're eating a sufficient amount of protein, and from animal protein sources, then you're going to get enough leucine. And
Then
if you're vegan, then I can't help you. Listen to a different podcast. I don't know.
I mean, there's no vegan source or vegetarian source of protein where I've seen that you'll be able to gain all those muscle building amino acids. It's just they are the incomplete source of all the amino acid profile that you need to have for the muscle protein synthesis.
Agreed. So what are some other supplements that people might be able to use? Let's assume that people are exercising. People got that in their diet is, they have lots of protein. They've got, they're eating their vegetables. They're not eating overly sugary or fatty or processed foods. What is maybe a next step of something that you can start to add into your routine supplement wise?
I think, Daniel, the most important supplement, which I wanted to actually emphasize so much on that. And these are all low-hanging fruits, which you can simply just take a pill and then fill in all those deficiencies, right? These are vitamin D, because all of us, literally all of us, at least 70% of US population is deficient in vitamin D. And the reason for that is because vitamin D is the only vitamin that your body synthesizes. It's synthesized on skin and from skin when you get exposed to the sunlight. And we guys are not so exposed to the sunlight, and also as our ancestors used to be, as like 300 years ago. I mean, everybody was walking, hunter, gather, farming, agriculture, all that kind of routine and norms in life. You were just automatically exposed to sunlight. But then our lifestyle nowadays is just so different. We all know, technology sitting in and all the time, cell phones, this and that, but just we are not exposed to sunlight. And the second reason that we are not getting enough vitamin D is because we slather ourselves with all those sun protection, for protecting ourselves from UVA and UVB, which I don't deny, which is needed, definitely, because you want to save yourself from skin cancers and, all those melanomas. They are devastating. But I try my people to at least get out in the sun during morning time before 9 a.m. at least, and after 4 p.m. Try to consume some kind of sunlight as much as possible before, during those times. So just don't expose yourself in between 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. because those kind of UV radiations are really bad. Too bad. I mean, they have too much intensity of UVA and UVB. But at least before 9 a.m., around 9 a.m., and after 4 p.m., get yourself exposed to the sunlight and then consume the tablets, consume the pills, look for some good source, clean source of vitamin D, because vitamin D is needed for your cell membrane. It's needed for your hormones. It's needed for your immunity. Also, it's needed for serotonin, that is to boost your mood. You need it for every single function in the body. And these micronutrients, and I wanted to bring this for people who are listening to us, these micronutrients. Micronutrients are basically all the vitamins, minerals, amino acids, all these together, they are called micronutrients, and they are utmost important for us. And these are always, overlooked and understudied, totally ignored kind of, and especially in developed countries and USA, we all are very deficient in micronutrients like magnesium, omega-3 fatty acids, iodine. Our iodine levels are getting just depleted. Our vitamin D is so low. Our B12 is so low. And there's a reason for all that. Our soil is all depleted. We don't get enough iodine and enough magnesium from the soil because our soil is totally depleted. And at the same time, we are not eating enough greens. We'll talk about magnesium definitely, but or talking about micronutrients, this is the area which was totally ignored in health, even while doing the research and funding the research for that. And people are not aware of that. There are many people, even doctors, when I tell them that micronutrient is a big problem, and they're like, what are you talking? What is micronutrient? So micronutrient to the people who are listening are all the vitamins, minerals, and fatty acids.
Yeah, I wonder why. I mean, it's definitely not the biggest thing. Like if someone is not exercising, not sleeping, not, drinking water, like very, very basic stuff, like, taking a magnesium and a vitamin D is not going to save you, but it's definitely going to help. And for the most part, they're actually like fairly cost effective. Now, supplement companies and the industry itself, because maybe this is why it's been overlooked in some sense, is because you can't claim like a patent on magnesium or vitamin D. And so anyone who wants to can make their own vitamin D supplement, and then it's, very poor quality. There's very bad quality control and distribution and all this stuff. And most of the supplement companies are garbage out there. And so you get this problem. And so doctors, and to some extent rightfully so, start to be like, no, just avoid them because they don't know what you're taking. And you also don't know what you're taking. Like getting the cheapest one available is probably not the best option,
That's
but
not the best.
getting the one that your favorite influencer markets is probably also not a good option. Like there's something in between there, and you really, really, really have to do your research for these.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. You got to be doing your research in order to figure out which one is the right brand for you, which one is, look for the third-party testing, see what dosage are you consuming. And I also really emphasize on, before starting any vitamins or all these micronutrients that we are going to talk about, before and after taking them for at least 3 to 6 months, do your testing. You need to really know your levels, what it was before, and how much difference has it made after you've been taking it for a few months, right? Because anything that doesn't get measured, it cannot be managed. You really need to measure your biomarkers. Otherwise, you would have no idea. Unless you see the picture, how do you know what you're deficient in and what are you going to do to improve this, right? So that's why, start doing your research. Just don't get carried away by anybody telling you that this is good, or seeing something very first on the Google internet search is not the way to go about it. Just read the label, look for every third-party testing, do your research, look at the dosage, and also see that it is not mixed with some other component which can actually make the bioavailability of that particular component little inefficient. So just make sure that if you're taking vitamin D, it's not kind of just mixed with some other component which is kind of just diluting all the effects of it, And I people ask, what's the right dose? It depends. That's why I say always get your some. If your vitamin D level is around 30, I would rather have you getting started at 5,000 IU per day. But like for me, I started with 30, which was too low, but now I'm on like 70, which is too good, So I'm back on my 1,000 IU, which is just a maintenance level. So that's why you can always tighter your dose depending on what your levels are. Just don't keep on blindly taking it because it can cause toxicity too. So level less than 30 is insufficient. So take your dose accordingly. And if you can bring it to 50 to 70, which is excellent.
Yeah. So I think that's so important to say, because if you don't know why you're taking something, you may just be wasting your money and maybe even causing harm, which is more important than wasting your money. Like I think it's probably pretty difficult for most people, but you could overdo it on vitamin D if you're taking way too much for way too long. Exactly. It's definitely possible. Exactly. And any other supplement as well. Yeah. So you really have to be paying attention to your levels and also pay attention to how you feel when you take them and how they interact with you. Like there's some people that are like, oh, this whatever supplement really upset my stomach. And it's like maybe just a different brand with a certain different ingredient list for that same main ingredient works for them and doesn't upset their stomach. But you have to really pay attention to those things. And so that's probably why it's a good idea to don't introduce like 7 different things at once. Like just one at a time, see how it's going, and then continue to expand from there.
Absolutely. And these are the things which are just all, you are well aware of, if you are well aware with your knowledge and all around you, just low hanging fruit. You don't have to really work hard to go get it. There's no hassle. And then also look for definitely magnesium. Magnesium is involved literally in 300 enzymatic activities in your body. Like when I say enzymatic activity, the most important is your body is constantly going through all your cells are constantly working. They are going through replication. They're dividing. When cell divide, all that process leads to the end products, byproducts, and all those byproducts that keep getting collected in the surrounding tissue that causes inflammation, because that causes the production of a molecule called ROS, that is reactive oxygen species, that causes increased oxidation. And whenever a cell divide, there is always a damage to the cell, to the DNA. So there is a little damage to the DNA every time the cell divides. And we know that our cells are dividing all the time. They are multiplying all the time in order to do every single function in our body. We are breathing, we are running, we are thinking, focusing, doing yard work. Our metabolism is running. Anything that's happening in our body is basically based on the cellular functioning. And every time the cell is dividing, there's a little damage to the DNA. So when this damage to the DNA accumulates and you don't clear away that damage, all that accumulation of damage causes the collection of all those end products or byproducts of the cellular functioning. And that is the environment for mutation of the cells, right? So that causes increased risk of cancer. That causes increased risk of oncogenic activity around that tissue. So we need to clear up that. So that's where the role of an enzyme, which is called DNA polymerase. So that DNA polymerase is most important enzyme that is involved with DNA synthesis as well as DNA repair. And we need that enzyme. It's utmost important because if it is not present, we are going to be falling victim of cancer, right? So that's why all these enzymatic activities are all supported by magnesium. So that's why the role of magnesium is so important in your body. Not only for enzymatic activities, for your muscle repair, for your mood, to lower down your cholesterol, to lower down your blood pressure, we need magnesium. And around, as per RDA, 400 mg per day for adult dose, And again, look for the right supplement, basically. Do your testing before and later so that those, just basic steps, it's just an important, very, very important mineral in your body that you need.
100% agreed. It's one of the things that I use regularly and that I've advise a lot of people to think about using anyways, and it always helps people. Now, what type of magnesium do you recommend, and what would be the considerations for the different types? Because there are, like vitamin D, there's just vitamin D, but there's multiple different types of magnesium. So how do you go about figuring out which one is best? So
the most important is the glycinate. Magnesium glycinate. I take a combination of magnesium glycinate and magnesium citrate because when magnesium citrate salt is added along with glycinate, it increases the bioavailability. It increases the absorption of the magnesium into the cell. So that makes it a little bit more efficient. So those two combinations are really good. There is a brand that has the combination of all 7 different salts of magnesium. And I think it's called BioOptimizer. I like that brand as well, because it's a pretty nice and clean brand. And it has a combination of all those 7 glycinates, citrates, and all others, which are important for each individual action, And I like the brand as well,
Yeah, I'll have to check that one out. I haven't heard of that specific product with all of them involved, but that's probably a good place to start looking anyways.
Yes.
Any other supplements that you would recommend that like most people look into? Of course, there's like a whole world of supplements out there, but like the main ones.
You're very right. There is whole world of supplements, but that's why I say to start basic. Vitamin D, magnesium, and the most important is omega-3 fatty acid. Again, it's just people were not aware to it. Maybe 10 years, a decade ago, because again, overlooked supplement. But it is so important because you see, if we talk about aging, we know the main cause of aging is inflammation internally as far as the processes of aging are going on inside our body. And omega-3 fatty acid omega-3 fatty acid actually decreases the inflammation to the utmost level. It's required to reduce the level of inflammation in your body. So omega-3 fatty acids has 3 kinds of fatty acids, EPA, DHA, which are the 2 marine sources. And then ALA is the plant source. We don't have too much function of ALA, the plant source, but still we need it. But EPA and DHA, they are utmost needed. EPA is basically for the heart functioning, the heart boost, and the DHA is for your brain functioning properly. And we get these 2, EPA and DHA, basically from marine sources. That's from the seafood and the fish and all that stuff. And again, we and I want to actually tell everybody this, there's an index called omega-3 fatty acid index. That's an index to measure how much omega-3 fatty acids you have in your body. So optimally, it should be around 8%. And we all are around, in United States, we all are around 4% to 5%, because it's just because we are not consuming enough marine source of omega-3 fatty acid. As compared to Japan, if you ever study, there was a study conducted and they tried to compare their levels. They are around 10 to 12%, which is even more than the optimal level, which is too good, and that's just because they do consume a lot of marine sources. So right. I urge my clients that, start consuming good quality fish, especially, small fish like sardines and good seafood, and also, salmon, but avoid big fish like swordfish, halibut, because they'll be full of they'll be full of mercury, and you don't need the contamination of mercury in your food. But definitely, again, do your testing and then consume good amount of fish and seafood, and also consume your omega-3 fatty acid supplements around 1.5 to 2 gram initially to begin with. And once you know that your levels are quite settled, come back to 1 gram or 1.5 gram. That is what I consume every day, 1.5 gram. I try to consume it because I know, again, the problem with omega-3 fatty acid, you never know when they do all that titration while making, how clean the omega-3 and how much mercury it would have. So I take a supplement, I prescribe myself, and we get it from the pharmacy because it's the FDA recommended one, is FDA approved. So we know that it has been tested, that it will not have mercury levels, or it will be a clean brand. Right. But definitely, it is utmost important supplement to basically hunker down your inflammation in the body. There's a study that I wanted to we all know that, trans fat is bad. The consumption of trans fat is bad. Processed food is bad, and there was a study conducted. We know that the death in year because of consuming the bad fat or trans fat or processed food is 82,000 deaths per year. And if you are basically deficient in omega-3 fatty acids, the death because of lack of omega-3 fatty acids is 84,000. So you see how close they are. We all know, okay, consuming bad fat is bad, trans fat is bad, and, processed food is bad. But at the same time, think about this. If you're lacking in omega-3, and then you see the amount of deaths per year is pretty similar. 82,000 over there, 84,000. So you see, it's not consuming omega-3 is as bad as consuming trans fat. You see?
Yeah, that is definitely a stat that I didn't know, and that really brings into more question some of these things. Is like, hey, why are we, it's a good thing that we got rid of most of the trans fats, and people are generally like aware that like, hey, trans fat is bad, do not consume. But to your point, we're also unaware. I think most people have heard of omega-3. They probably think, oh yeah, that's healthy, but they don't really care about it or know that much about it or know why it's healthy or use it per se. And so that's still causing like an equal amount of deaths. That's actually extremely, extremely interesting and extremely sad, but extremely interesting that it hasn't been promoted in the same way that the anti-trans fat movement caught on, and again, rightfully so.
Yeah.
Is there an ideal ratio in the omega-3s that people should be looking for, EPA to DHA?
I can't say much on it. I do not know that. Okay. But I think EPA DHA it's a good question. I should have been knowing it, but I think it's pretty similar. But I will look.
You need both either way. So
yeah, you need both. You need one for the heart health, the other one for the brain, and I think it's pretty similar to each other. So I think the ratio should be one, but I will look into it. I'm not really much sure about it
because different supplements just have different breakdowns, and so But so I think that's pretty solid on the supplements, and again gives people some people who are already exercising, who are already taking care of some of those basic things, like it gives you some good information as to like, hey, here's some next steps you can do. Now, the last big bucket that we didn't really talk about, and we'll kind of finish here, is sleep. We all know that we should be sleeping better. We all know that we should be sleeping more. We all know that we should care about this a little bit more. We know that we should be, not scrolling on your phone and not staying up late and, all these things, but yet we still do it. So let people know, like, what are the deleterious effects of not sleeping well every night?
So first of all, I mean, sleeping is non-negotiable. It is one of the important pillar for anti-aging, or it's a very, very important fundamental pillar for age-related disease, So people, what is actually lack of sleep? We should be ideally sleeping around 7 to 8 hours per night, right? But people who are sleeping around 4 to 5 hours, and then their latency period is 30 minutes. That means the time that they take from going to sleep, being on the bed and really falling asleep is 30 minutes. And then next day, if they're taking naps, so you're just sleeping for 4 to 5 hours in a night, 30 minutes latency period. And the third point is taking 2 or 3 naps next day morning. So if you ever see those 3 symptoms, then you know that your sleep is not enough, that your sleep hygiene is totally poor, and there can be a lot of problems because of sleep, the lack of sleep. Because, sleep is detrimental. You see, we all know that stem cells are so important. Stem cells are basically the body guards. They are those guarding cells that anywhere your body needs, anywhere there's a disease or some kind of repair or construction happening, it goes from that basic pluripotent mode and then go to that specific place to basically do the function, right? But because of lack of sleep, if you're not sleeping 7 to 8 hours, but they're sleeping 4 hours per night, basically you're causing reduction in your stem cell functioning and your stem cell efficiency by 50%. So you see, sleep is so important, because during sleep, not only that you need it for your strength and for your focus, and it is also very important to clear away all those bad proteins. Your CSF, the cerebrospinal fluid, have those beta amyloid proteins. So during the deep sleep, your lymphatic systems of your CSF, which is called glymphatic system, just like our body has lymphatic system, which is a detoxification method, right? Your brain also, your CSF also has a lymphatic system, and that is called glymphatic system. That glymphatic system is clearing away all the toxins, and the toxins of CSF is beta amyloid. So if there's a collection of all these beta amyloid in the CSF on a chronic level, that is the cause of causing the Alzheimer's disease or dementia. So again, if you're not sleeping enough, if you're just sleeping 4 to 5 hours per night, your risk of having Alzheimer's is increased by 2 times. So, sleep is just important not only for your focus, for your memory, for your overall vitality. It's also needed for, people who don't sleep enough. They are the perfect example for the risk factor of having to develop prediabetes. For 1 week you don't sleep. There was a study done. For 1 week, these patients, they didn't sleep enough. They just slept for 4 to 5 hours versus other patients who, other cases versus control. The control group who slept enough, there was increase in the risk of prediabetes in these just 1 week of lack of sleep.
Yeah.
Perfect people, these cases were actually pre-diabetic was as compared to the control group. So it's really, really important. And some people they are so addicted to be basically sitting in front of the cell phones and iPad. But I think it's a circadian rhythm, circadian rhythm is something that you train your brain to follow that rhythm. I know all these things are so attractive to basically sit in front of, watching late night movies and eating and binging and whatever. It is very attractive. You feel good because obviously when you are eating and you're not in that mode of, because after 5 p.m., as per your circadian rhythm, your melatonin is active. And in the morning, when you get exposed to the sunlight, your adrenaline is active so that you can do your day-to-day activity. Mm-hmm. But if you're just going against the rhythm, you are basically shutting down the whole cycle. You are kind of just killing your melatonin and you're eating, and then you are basically telling your body that it's a daytime, because when that sugar goes in your body, when that food goes in your body, the glucose goes in your body, that stimulates the production of adrenaline. And you think that it's a daytime, and then again, it's just like a vicious cycle. So during the night, basically you're sitting, eating, watching, thinking that it's a daytime because you're totally killed your melatonin. So it's important to basically maintain your circadian rhythm, and there are easy steps to do that. It's just that you got to be motivated to do it, right? I mean, I think that bringing your environment to the real dark environment after that time of 7 p.m. or 8 p.m., just be not exposed to the blue light and bright light. Those are the two very, very important factors for actually having your body to basically go into the mode when you have enough melatonin that actually induce sleep.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not sleeping well and you're not doing anything to try and help yourself, this is 100% just on you. We would all love to just scroll TikTok all day and just do nothing and let your brain melt and eat potato chips in bed. And that would obviously feel good to do it once, then twice, 3 times. Your body can adapt, but you're fighting a losing battle. You're fighting against biology, and you're not going to beat that. You're not going to win that. It's like you try and go outside in the middle of the desert. You're not going to beat the sun. This is not a thing that you can. It's not a battle that you can win. So you need to start. You can't beat them, join them. So you can't just get around it. Maybe you should just actually pay attention to your sleep. Get the phone away. Get the lights off. Get your mood set. Get your physical environment set up correctly so that you can actually sleep and help yourself. This is not about anyone else. This is just you. And so you can try and ignore it, or you can try and kind of hey, maybe I'll just roll with this and I'm going to actually feel way better. And you will.
Exactly. I mean, absolutely. This just going against the biology of your body. That's basically road to be going into, all those high risk factors for diseases, right?
Exactly. And it's an entry point into that vicious cycle to bring things full circle, right? When you stay up late, you're more stressed. So then you want to eat shittier foods the next day, and then that's going to make you gain more weight, which puts more fat, which puts more inflammation, which makes it harder to sleep, which just it just rolls and rolls and rolls down. So you got to stop it somewhere. And for some of you, just improving your sleep is going to be the thing that's all I did was improve my sleep and I lost weight, got healthier, blah, blah, all these things.
Right. But, I mean, even with less effort on any other, those foundations that we talked about, if you just work on your sleep, you can just see the improvement, definitely, in your overall health. Yes.
Exactly. It's very easy. So if you're wondering where to start there. Dr. Mani, is there anything else that we missed that you want to cover today?
It's pretty much, all the important, the important supplements and micronutrients. I know that we have so much other advancement like photomodulation, PRP therapies, peptides, hormones. We can talk so much on that, but just to begin with, these are some basic level improvements that we can actually just, bring in our life for just general population. And then once you have actually been able to balance all this, then you can move into more advanced, just like I said, definitely. I love, Daniel, sauna therapy is so good. And, exercising that hit the high intensity that I do, anytime that you can sweat your body, that's the basic. That's the best thing that you can do for your body. You sit in the sauna, you sweat, you detoxify. You do the high intensity exercise, you sweat, you detoxify. And when your body is all nice and clean, is able to do its function right? So these are pretty much basics that we can talk. Maybe the other next session, we can talk about the advanced therapies that we can do. Definitely sauna therapy. Then we can talk about the science of that. And I love heat and cold exposure because, again, that is one road to basically activate your sirtuin genes, the anti-aging genes. And then definitely red light therapy. So we can talk about all that later, but those are other big factors that you can optimize. But these are the basic things that what we talked about today, just basic fundamentals.
Yeah, agreed. And again, we've said it a few times, but there's no getting around the basics. So we can cover all the level 2 kind of stuff in another conversation, because obviously it'll be a long chat. But yeah, no, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing all this stuff with us. I think it's super helpful, and people can't hear these things enough, because as many times as we've said this here and other people have talked about these things, these basic issues of adequate nutrition, adequate sleep, adequate training are still plaguing the population. We are still not doing this collectively. So we need more of this. And if you are listening to this yeah, I already knew all that stuff. Great, thanks. Go tell someone else, because obviously everyone doesn't know this. And if they know it, they're not doing it. So we need to continue to share this information. Definitely. So I appreciate the work that you're doing.
We say that these are basic, simple things. But then again, when I see the statistics, these are the most ignored things.
Right.
What if we can correct these? I mean, we can literally 80% correct our health optimization.
Yeah, exactly. The level 2 stuff, the sauna, the red light, the peptides, the whatever, it doesn't matter if you sleep 3 hours a night. You can't out sauna your bad sleep or no exercise or poor nutrition. So we just got to keep getting this out there. So again, I appreciate the work that you're doing, your upcoming book. And so I appreciate all that.
Thank you very much for having me at your platform.
Of course. Where can people find you, your contact info and social media, website, all those things? I'll put it all in the show notes, but let people know.
Yeah, I'm quite active education-wise on my social media, my Instagram, Dr.money.Kukreja, and my website is liveagewell.net. And you can always email me, contact me up there. I'm always available for any issues or any questions that you have.
Awesome. I'll put that in the show notes so people can get in touch with you. Link below. And that's that. Dr. Mani, thank you so much again for being here. I appreciate your time and sharing with us. I appreciate each and every one of you for listening. Please share this episode with a friend, like, share, subscribe, all those good things. Follow us both on social media. That's that. Go outside. Be a good person. See you next time.